So Road to UFC wrapped up just a couple of weeks ago. We obviously had that Road to UFC tournament, and now the finalists are being signed to the UFC. The finalists that won, and also the finalists that lost as well. If you made it into the finals, you won because you were literally part of a tournament. You had to win just to get into that place anyway. There's actually a very good interview out there from Kevin Chang, the UFC executive. I believe he's some sort of representative of UFC Asia. He talks about it, and he also talks about the future about Road to UFC, and he actually says that they want to do a tournament next year, and they want to target more countries that maybe they didn't really target this year. So I'm going to be going over a potential roster, just a bunch of people that I think do fit the bill of making it into Road to UFC, and I would like to shout out, I believe his name is Justinas Smakonis. He sent me the DM, so shout out to him. Thank you so much for letting me know about this interview and let me know what they were planning in the future, because this is the kind of content that I want to make. And we're going to start with the flyweights and work our way up about the guys that I think would make a lot of sense to be in the tournament. Obviously, you could have a lot of returning fighters. I'm not really going to mention the returning fighters. I think it would make sense to do that. But one of them is definitely one that caught my attention, Top Noi Karan. I kind of just want Top Noi Karan to be signed to the UFC. Because he's good, but also because he's absolutely hilarious. This guy is so funny when he fights, when he walks out. He's just got the personality for days. He's a great fighter. He would be very good addition to the UFC, but he did lose to Hyun Sung Park by rear naked choke, and now he is not in the UFC, but maybe he could be in the tournament again. Maybe they could just sign him, but now let's get into it. Makoto Takahashi, 15-1, 22 years old. I think it would be a waste putting him in the tournament, especially because, in my opinion, no matter who you put in the tournament, Makoto Takahashi will probably beat them all. But now we move on to Shuai Yin, 15-3. A little bit less proven than Makoto Takahashi because he hasn't really fought in the same level of competition, but he has fought some good guys. Over at JCK, he's fought some not so great guys. Over at JCK, I think that he would be a pretty good addition to the tournament, to Road to UFC in 2024. Zifa Shang is another guy I've been campaigning to be in the UFC. He is 36 years old, so he's pretty old, but he's gone on a nice win streak since his Dana White's Contender Series loss, which I thought that he personally won, and he's doing pretty good for himself now. Very good fighter. He's a little bit old for flyweight, but very experienced. He would be a good addition to the tournament. Joe Arai, he's 12-9, not a flashy record, but he's 25 years old, and he's on a crazy win streak right now. This guy is on an 8-fight win streak. He's really turned his career around. I feel like he would have like a pretty cool story to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, this guy kind of bounced back against some guys that weren't that great. And then he fought a 14-7 guy, beat him in the first round, beat a 14-3 guy, 19-8. You know, I feel like if he wins this next fight coming up, maybe he could be like a guy that Road to UFC would pick up, because I think he would be very interesting to be part of the tournament. Not a flashy record, but a guy that's on a massive win streak right now would be kind of cool. Ronel Sian, now we're talking about guys that aren't really in countries that were represented too much in the tournament. Ronel is from Indonesia. He is 7-0. He fights for the big Indonesian tournament, or Indonesian fight promotion, One Pride MMA. I believe he's the champion as well, and he gets a lot of first round finishes as of recent, which is quite cool. But yeah, he fights for One Pride MMA. He's fought some good guys, 8-3, 6-3, 8-5. I think he would make a good addition to the tournament. The next one is Angad Bisht. He is from India. There was only there were two Indian fighters in Road to UFC last year, and one of them actually won the whole tournament. And I feel like that's going to be maybe a pathway for a lot of Indian fans to get behind UFC. Maybe a lot of Indians as well might start to train MMA, and maybe we'll see some more in the UFC. But Angad Bisht, he's 9-3. He's fought some pretty good guys in the regional scene. I think he would make sense to be another Indian guy to add to the Road to UFC tournament if you wanted to represent that country a little bit more. Ray Suruya, he's 6-0. He's only 20 years old. He's not an old guy whatsoever. He isn't super proven, but he's getting super early finishes over not so great competition, but also over great competition, like 11-10, 18-7, 8-3, all first round, all second round finishes. I think he would be a pretty good addition to the tournament. Next one is Ismail Khan. He's from Pakistan. There are no fighters from Pakistan in the Road to UFC tournament, so I think he would be a pretty good addition to the tournament for sure. And he had a really extensive amateur record. You know what I mean? He fought in the IMMAF, which is a pretty big deal. And then now he's gone pro and he's beaten guys. He's got a 4-second KO. I mean, I'm going to have to watch that. I haven't seen it, so that would be pretty awesome. But he does seem to be a pretty good, well-rounded fighter. He's only 21 as well, so maybe he could be like the guy that gets Pakistan on the map for MMA. That could be kind of cool. The next one is Jinu Shuyi. He is 11-2. He calls himself Little King Kong, which is kind of funny. But he's got good wins as well. Not really. I lied to you guys, but you know, he would be in there. You know, he's 11-2. He's got a good record. He did lose to Jifa Shang, who I talked about earlier, but he could be a guy that you could put in there. He's from China. China was very well represented in the tournament last year. Clinton Kenin de Cruz as well is another Indian fighter. He is a flyweight as well, and he hasn't really fought anyone too great, but he's still undefeated. He's fight to a Matrix Fight Night, which is actually a really fun promotion to watch. I do actually recommend that you watch Matrix Fight Night events because they're very high budget. Because I believe Bollywood, a lot of Bollywood stars own this this sort of promotion, and they put a lot of effort into it, and they're actually quite fun to watch. So that's the flyweights that I've got loaded up here. We're going to get into some bantamweights as well, which could potentially be in the road to UFC next year. And as we move on to the bantamweights, this is a flyweight I forgot about, Jung Kyun Lee. I don't know how he went over my head, but he is a pretty hyped up prospect, 8-0, 20 years old. A lot of finishes on his record as well, a couple of decisions as well. It seems like if he can't finish you in the first, it goes the distance. But now let's get into the bantamweights. Let's return Kiramawali Maimata Tahiti. I just want to hear Bruce Buffer say his name, to be honest, but he's 29-12. He's fought some really good guys as well. He lost to Toshiomi Kazama in the first round last time, but let's just bring him back. He beat Jia Yi, who ended up in the finals. He's got a win over Willie G. Burrow, who's a former UFC fighter. He's also got a lot of wins as well. If you go back in his career over Long Zhao is on this list as well. Just to kind of spoil it, he's this guy here, Long Zhao. I do think that he is a guy that's been given many opportunities by the UFC to get him in the UFC, which just tells me they want him. They want him in the UFC. They put him up there on the Contender Series in 2021. He won a couple of times. He was meant to fight Minwoo Kim. I believe he got sick, and Minwoo Kim moved on in the tournament. We'll talk about him soon. And then he was going to fight Felipe Lima in like a bonus road to UFC fight, and then he got injured, so unfortunately that never happened for him. So they want Long Zhao. The next one is Rana Rudra Pratap Singh. A pretty long name there, but he seems to be a featherweight actually, but he's on the bantamweight list when I was going through, but whatever. He doesn't really seem to be a guy that has beaten the best competition in the world. And when he fought one good guy, he kind of lost, but I think he would still be a good addition to the show. 11-1's a good record as well. I reckon he could maybe make it on the show. I think he would probably do a good road to UFC tournament. Tatsuya Ando, this is a guy I'm very hyped about. He should have been on the show last year. I don't know why he wasn't. But, yeah, he doesn't really fight too much recently, but he's got good wins, man. He's got good wins. 15-3 win, 17-5 win. He lost by injury, you know what I mean? And he had the draw to Ryo Okada, and then he avenged it and finished Ryo Okada in the second round. He's a good fighter, and I feel like he's definitely deserving of Dana White's Contender Series, road to UFC. Just whatever gets him in the UFC makes me happy, to be honest. I think he should be in there. Su Young Yu is a 10-2 opponent. He's bantamweight, but Tapology has him as a featherweight. It is what it is. He hasn't really fought the greatest competition in the world, and when he did, he kind of lost, which was to an 11-0 opponent who's now 14-0 and in Bellator doing his own sort of thing now. But anyway, the point is, he did recently beat a couple of decent guys, somewhat. I think that he will probably make a good addition to the road to UFC tournament. I think it makes sense. Next one is Koichi Ichigusa. I am very sorry about me saying that. He's 35, so he's pretty old, and he does seem to be signed to Ryzen, which I don't know. Maybe he's not on an exclusive contract. I don't know. Maybe he's not available for the season, but it would be kind of cool. Hikaru Yoshina is 12-2. He's 27 years old. He's now fighting for UAE Warriors, so maybe he's on an exclusive contract again. But he's also fought for ONE FC in the past as well, which is kind of cool. He's got good wins on his record. You know, you go through his record, he's beaten guys that are pretty decent. And, yeah, he recently beat a 6-0 guy. He's a young guy, up and coming. I think he would be pretty good addition to the tournament. This next one here is maybe a little bit iffy, but his name is Dayomisi Sawapasi, and he is 6-0. He's from China. He's kind of like Rinya Nakamura in the way that he beat all these guys that weren't so great, And then he took on a really good guy and won, because if you look at Rinya Nakamura's career prior to road to UFC, he fought like not the best guys, and then he just had like one really good win, and that's kind of what Dale Mercy has here. So he's on the list as well, and we'll move on to the featherweights. And as we move on to the featherweights, we've got a couple of guys that definitely need to return. Minwoo Kim, you may say, kind of wasted his opportunity in the last fight, in the last Road to UFC event. He had the cancelled bout against Long Zhao. That wasn't his fault, but then when he fought Toshiyama Kazama, he missed weight, so Toshiyama Kazama moved on to the finals. But that was at 135. He's now moved up to 145 pounds. He recently defeated a veteran fighter with a record of 34, 22, and 1. Maybe they just put this guy in Dana White's Contender Series. He seems to be a pretty good fighter. A lot of finishes, pretty marketable guy as well. He's still pretty young, but I think he'll be pretty cool on a Road to UFC tournament. The next one is another returning fight, Azekirbai Jenin Smabinki. I definitely said this wrong. I really tried. Jenin Suyubiki. There we go, sorry. 39 and 11 record. He's also a returning fighter. He got knocked out in 30 seconds. We didn't really get to see how good he is, but that is a crazy name. That is a crazy record. Super experienced. Keisuke Sasu, another returning guy. I mean, you kind of just got to. He beat Balajin on Road to UFC in a bonus fight after losing to Jia Yi. You kind of just got to put him on there. He's got really good wins on his record as well. Maybe if he wins this fight here in Shuto, that just put him on Dana White's Contender Series. Would kind of make sense. But now let's move on to the new fighters. Ju Sangyu, 5-0. Hasn't really beaten the best guys. He's beaten some really experienced guys, but he hasn't really beaten the best guys. Maybe it'll be a little bit too much too soon. I'm assuming he's still a young guy, but he's on the list anyway. Tokitaka Nakanishi. I love saying this guy's name. It's actually really fun. But he was on my list for 2022 and who I thought was going to be there. And he wasn't. So he's on my list for 2024. He's beaten a couple of decent guys. Not really the greatest guys in the world, but I think that he would make a pretty good addition to Road to UFC. Esiel Kobayashi is 27-5. He's an older guy, 34 years old. But he's on a good win streak right now. He's beaten good guys, a 33-5 opponent, 14-10, 13-7, 13-7 again, and also 9-3 Koyomi Matsushima. Am I thinking of the right person here? I am. He was on Road to UFC as well, Koyomi Matsushima, and he's also lost to this guy, Esiel Kobayashi. So, put him on the show. I think it makes sense. Rabindra Dant, this is a very interesting one. He's a very young fighter, 24 years old. He would be representing Nepal. And we've never seen, I don't think we've ever seen a fighter from Nepal in the UFC, Dana White's Contender Series or anything. So maybe this guy could be a prospect to come out of Nepal, which would be very interesting and very fun. Hopefully that could be quite cool. Maybe a little bit too much too soon to put him on Road to UFC, but he's a fighter that I found and thought, oh, that's pretty cool, so I better just put him in the video. Kangji Zhu is 15-3, hasn't really fought the best guys. You'll notice that a lot about these JCK guys. My understanding of JCK is it's like this massive tournament, and they just kind of like match everyone up with everyone, and that's why you see like some guys end up with really good records. So obviously the really good guys just fight bad guys, quote unquote, the whole time. You know what I mean? So they end up with a good record, and then the bad guys just fight the bad guys, but also the really good guys. JCK is a very confusing promotion. I tried to keep up with it at the start of last year, and I couldn't. I didn't really get it. I think it's like a 64-man tournament, and then you win, and then you move on, and then you win, you move on. But because there's so many fighters in there, like from every weight class, there's a lot of good guys, and there's a lot of not so good guys. So it kind of just evens out, I guess. I don't know. But that's how you'll see a lot of these guys that fight for JCK. Another one, Li Ting, 34-11, another JCK guy. Very experienced. These guys love to fight. Quite often they fight on the same night as well, multiple times, which is kind of entertaining and awesome. But yeah, once again, not really fighting the best guys in the world, but he's very experienced. He's also fought Ariel Jelly, who, wait a minute, do I recognize this guy? No, I don't. He's got a very similar name to someone else thinking of. Ignore me. But Li Ting would be a good fighter to add to the show. Shikang Zhao, another very experienced fighter. These guys love to fight, man. 28 years old. Once again, not really fought the best guys in the world, but he's very experienced. 24-5 would probably make a pretty good addition to the show. And now finally, we've got a fighter from Indonesia, 7-3 record, Alpres Mantako. He could be pretty fun. He's fought some good guys, 4-0, 11-5, and 7-2 recently. So maybe he could be a pretty good guy to have on the show, also representing Indonesia as well. And now as for the final weight class, the lightweights, Won Bin Ki is the returning fighter that I'm just going to highlight here. Very experienced, 17-8. He's also huge for the weight class. This guy might be 5'11", but this guy is massive for 155, dude. And he also trains for the Korean Zombie, so I think he would be pretty good. He also did lose to Jekis Aragi, who ended up in the finals, so can't really take too much away from that. I think that he would be pretty good to make a return. Now we move on to the newer fighters, Hendrik Tarigan. One thing that I've learned, Indonesia, low-key, is up-and-coming in MMA. Like, there's a lot of fighters from Indonesia up-and-coming. There's a lot of fighters from Peru up-and-coming. I've made a video already about regional fighters from Peru that could be in the UFC. But, man, there's a lot of fighters from Indonesia as well. You'll find that as well if you just browse Tapology, like I kind of did for this video. These guys aren't guys I just know off the top of my head. Some of them I am familiar with, but a lot of these times I'm just kind of going through Tapology to find these guys, because I'm not too familiar with the regional scene of Asian MMA. But yeah, this is cool. I think there's a lot of up and coming guys out of Indonesia, and this One Pride MMA might be like a promotion to look out for up and coming guys, because they're quite cool, man. I like this. I like seeing a lot of fighters from different countries come up. Another guy from Singapore, Sim Kai Jong. I think he's actually the only fighter from Singapore on this list. I think he's quite a young guy. He had a 7-1 amateur career, and now he's gone 5-0 in MMA. He's fought a 6-0 opponent, 2-0 opponent recently. Maybe he could be a guy to keep your eye on. Aziz Kadarov is 19-6. He's from China, and he fights out a China top team as well, so maybe a fighter to look out for. Been a lot of guys in his career, went on a huge win streak at one point, and then he lost to Balajin, who probably could make a return, but he did recently lose. And then he won a couple of times after that. Yibujeli is 21-11, but he is one of these JCK winners. I believe he won the 2021 tournament, and then he just hasn't really fought since the middle of 2022. But he's definitely a guy that I think could be someone that you could look out for, maybe in like a bigger promotion at some point. Aili Malatabieki, he actually beaten the guy that I just mentioned, whose name is Yibujeli. He beat Yubijeli, and he's also gone on to win a couple of times as well. He's from China, could be a good fighter to be in there. Tatsuya Saika is 9-3, he's 32 years old. He is KO or nothing. I remember looking at this guy and thinking, yeah, this is my kind of fighter. You know what I mean? He's never been the distance. He either KOs you in the first round or he loses. This guy needs to be on Dana White's Contender Series. I don't care, dude. This guy looks awesome, man. Like, he either KOs you in the first or he loses. It's just how it goes with this guy. I think he would be amazing on Contender Series. I think he would be amazing on Road to UFC. I like this guy's vibe. I like what he goes for. What a legend, dude. Love that kind of fighter, man. Kimihiro Ito, very experienced, 20-6, older guy, 34 years old. He's fought for ONE FC in the past. He's fought for Verizon in the past. I think he could be a guy that could maybe make something happen in Road to UFC. Hotake O is 9-2. He is 29 years old. He's fought for ONE FC. In fact, he's probably signed to ONE FC right now. Why did I not see that? Ignore him, because he will not be able to be in the tournament. C1 Park, 8-0 fighter, undefeated, 20 years old. He's a good fighter too. He's a guy that was on my list for maybe being in the tournament this year. But he didn't make it, obviously, because he's 20 years old. Maybe a little bit unproven. Maybe if he wins a couple more fights, you could really see him again. But yeah, he's fought some good guys. I'm looking forward to it. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's a good scrapper. And let me know what you think of the video. It was a little bit rushed. I'm a little bit tired. This is admittedly very pre-recorded because I'm going away for a couple of days. But I thought I'd better make this video, man. I think it's a fun video to make. I like looking at prospects. I like finding prospects. And yeah, I think I might make just another video on the Peru regional scene, because that's like really good. But let me know what you think. Like, subscribe if you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next video.